Good morning and welcome back to another wonderful week of Chassidus Before Coffee. Today we're going to learn the mimer from this week, Parsha Vayera, and it is Gimel Shvat. So here we go. This is a mimer on this week's Parsha. And in the Torah, in this week, it starts listing the family of Aharon, the family of the high priest, Levi, and when it's listing them, right after, there's two verses. One says, Hu Aharon Moshe, Asher Amar Hashem Lahem Haitzius B'nei Yisrael Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That's pasuk number one, verse number one. He is, they, well, here it means they are, Aharon and Moshe, who took out the Jewish people from Egypt. And then the next verse goes, They are the ones who took out, who spoke to Paro, the king of Egypt. They are Moshe and Aharon. Okay. So these are the two verses in the Torah. It's known the point made with regard to these two verses. The question is, why does it say when the Jews are taken out of Egypt, Aharon, and then the name Moshe? And then when it says about going to speak to Paro, it says, the next verse, it says, they are Moshe and Aharon. It switches it up. So that's the question, a known question on this parsha. In fact, Rashi addresses it too. Okay, so it's a very, very famous known question. So and we could add in this point that is brought to our attention, seemingly should have been the opposite. Because when it comes to the Jews going out of Egypt, that was mainly Moshe. Because Moshe was the one who spoke to the Jewish people even without Aaron's presence. Moshe also received the Torah and gave it to the Bnei Yisrael, to the Yidden. Also with regard to taking the Jews out of Egypt, it was specifically Moshe who took them out of Egypt. Who's referred to as the Goel Rishon, the first Redeemer. Also the saif, or the end, or the water of Yitzis Mitzrayim, going out of Egypt. This is the idea of Kriyas Yamsuf, of going over the Red Sea. It was specifically through Moshe. So Moshe is the one who takes them out of Egypt, yet we're saying Aharon and Moshe. It should really be the opposite. Right? Lift up your stick. Specifically Moshe's staff. So we see, again, all of this indicates like why it should be the opposite way. It should say Moshe and Aharon when it comes to taking the Jewish people out of Egypt. Why does it switch it around, the verse? Aharon didn't really have much to do with the going out of the Jews from Egypt. Wasn't really involved in that. But he was involved in speaking to Paro. But again, let's say should have said Moshe and Aharon. Now, with regard to speaking to Paro, which is the second part we mentioned, second question, the main speaking was through Aharon. Because Moshe says to God, he says, I have a lisp. I can't speak well. I can't talk well. I heard whatever. So Aaron's the one who comes as an interpreter, or as his representative, his spokesperson. So if Aaron's a spokesperson, then when it comes to Nim Cain, the pasuk then in the second verse where he says they are the ones who spoke to Paro, it should have said Aharon and Moshe in that verse because Aaron was the main one speaking to Paro. So why is it flipped around completely in the verses that when it comes to going out of Egypt says Aaron or Moshe? Aaron went first, then Moshe. And vice versa, when it comes to speaking to Paro, they're just the opposite. Now, Rashi does address this. However, the Rebbe says that seemingly when the comparison that's brought by Rashi is about a mother and father, we have kibud av ve'em, honor your father and your mother, or your mother and your father. They're both equal to the child. They're both equally important in that way. However, in our scenario here, they're not the same. They're not weighted the same because going out of Mitzrayim isn't connected to Aharon. So the question over here, why it mentions Aharon in that way, is still a very good question that's not addressed by Rashi. So the Rebbe continues, says, Gam tzarich lahavin. So that's one question. Gam tzarich lahavin. We also have to understand another question. Who Aaron and Moshe? It says who. The word who, he, which is singular. Who Moshe Aaron? As the Zohar asks on this, seemingly it should have used the word haim, they. As it says in the second verse, it says, Haim Hamadarim, they are the ones who are speaking to Paro. And he says in the first verse, who Moshe Aaron, right? Who Aaron and Moshe. So why the switch up from, why is he using in the first verse a singular versus plural, which is appropriate, and we see literally the next verse, it says, Haim Moshe Aaron. So that's the question the Rebbe brings over here. Especially since it's understood from this pasuk that Moshe and Aaron are two different levels. As Rashi mentions, there's places where people are said first in order to equate them to one another. So since if you say that there are two different levels, there's Aaron, there's Moshe, and that they are they are two different levels. It should have said Haim in a way of Rabbim in a plural verbiage. So the Nakuda is there's two questions. Number one, Aaron and Moshe, Moshe and Aaron, why the switch up? And two, what's the idea of this who versus Haim? Why does it use singular versus plural when talking about them? So God willing, tomorrow we'll continue on in the Mimer. It's a beautiful Mimer, and can't wait to get into it and discuss it. This is a very down-to-earth Mimer. I hope you'll enjoy it. Have a fantastic day. What we want Mashiach now. So tomorrow our class will be in Yerushalayim, Yer Kodesh with Mashiach. Have a fantastic day. Thank you for watching.